Hey everybody, this is Rhett from Basis 365. Hope you're doing well and business is picking up now that vaccines are rolling out. We've seen a lot of e-commerce customers, new e-commerce customers come over to us these past few months, a bit more than normal. So thought I would share some ideas and thoughts about how those conversations typically go and what we typically see for new e-commerce businesses and things to look out for. I'll do a list of 5 topics that I think are important, and then quickly talk about the app stack that we typically would recommend an e-commerce business start with. So number 1, when you're building your business, is think about your gross margin, your gross profit. So how much money do you make on each unit sold, and make sure you're factoring in all of the things that should be in there. Oftentimes with e-commerce businesses, we might use instead of a normal income statement or P&L, we would look at contribution margin, because obviously with Amazon and some of the other platforms, there's a lot of fees to be built into that, which are not really your cost of goods sold, but do go up as you sell and is a significant part of the cost of selling. So think about that as you're working with your vendors and what you're going to sell the product for and doing your market test. Make sure you build a strong margin to pay for all of the things that will come after buying that product or the product cost. Number 2 is not focusing. So most e-commerce businesses are on Shopify or Amazon naturally. I sort of see those as 2 different purposes between those 2 platforms. It's not always true, but if you're trying to build a product that is a brand, then you're probably going to lean more towards Shopify, and your marketing spend is going to be more on influencers and Instagram and things like that. Where if you are selling just a bunch of things, and not really trying to build a brand and a following, then Amazon naturally is a good place for that. And your marketing dollars are going to go to Amazon. They're not going to be going to influencers typically. Obviously, there's variations of that, but those are just the 2 sales channels that are most common. Sometimes we'll see customers trying to sell on Walmart, eBay, Etsy, Amazon, Shopify, any sales channel they can. And I think typically that is just too much. You have no focus. Spreading your marketing dollars too thin. So I would say start on 1, maybe 2, but really understand why you're doing it and make sure your target customer is going to be there. Number 3, I just alluded to, not spending enough on marketing. So it's one thing to figure out who your vendors are going to be and buy the product and fire off the website, and maybe doing some Google ads or whatever you're going to do, but maybe not spend enough. And when we see funded e-commerce businesses, a large percentage of their sales is going to sales and marketing. It's not just product and operating expenses. So plan for that and really get a good understanding of what you're really going to have to spend, especially if you're working on a branded product, but also just competing in the Amazon marketplace on your advertising dollars. And more critically, especially for Shopify, it's all about the list. Your asset, the value of your company is really going to come down to that list and how well you manage that list, and keep in contact with those customers to have them be repeating customers, discounts and things to bring in new customers. So that's a large part of what you need to do to run a successful e-commerce business, is that list for some types of e-commerce businesses. Number 4, when customers do come over, it's not uncommon for us to see a lot of short-term loans. Credit cards are maxed, Cabbage loans, Intuit loans, Amazon loans. Everybody is capitalizing on these e-commerce businesses' needs and are being well compensated for it with high interest. So try to find better ways to get financing than just the short-term stuff when you really need it and now you have no time to plan. Then your only choice is going to be those short-term high-interest things. And then once you get 2, 3, 4 of those things running, it's going to be very hard for you to ever get out from under that. So think about that too before you just start buying products, selling, and then just reacting going forward, because it could kill the business in the long term. And the last one is not building a scalable workflow. So usually when an e-commerce business owner comes over, something's broken. They don't know what their inventory is, especially if they've got multiple sales channels. They're reconciling the settlement deposits manually and having to pull reports from the systems and break out all the fees, kind of a headache. So it's just realizing they can't continue to do this manually. It's causing a problem. And so the sooner you can invest in a platform and solution and accounting team potentially to do that for you, the more you'll be free to grow the business and the more scalable solution you'll have. So the typical app stack that we would recommend starting with is using Xero. Can also use QuickBooks Online, but if you're going to do it yourself, Xero, we believe, is far easier than QuickBooks Online. 9 times out of 10, if we inherit a QuickBooks file, it's going to be wrong anyways. Even Xero as well, but QuickBooks just is a little more complicated, which means we see more errors. The first e-commerce based application I would recommend is A2X. And A2X will help reconcile those settlement deposits and accrue for the revenue in the right period and have a very rudimentary way to reflect inventory on your balance sheet. And it's not that expensive, and that would be the first one I'd recommend starting with. Later on, as you do add more sales channels, have more volume, etc., maybe you're doing B2B sales, then you're going to need an inventory management program, something like a Deer Inventory or Unleashed, those types of programs that are focused on inventory wholly. You're not going to build your e-commerce business on Xero or QuickBooks Online's rudimentary inventory tracking. Maybe you can start in the very beginning, but after you graduate from an A2X, then you're going to want to look at an inventory management program. Somewhere in the $500,000, $750,000, $1 million revenue range is probably where you'll start to need something like that. And the last application is something like a tax jar to help manage the sales tax. So Amazon and some of those providers do that for you, but Shopify and some others don't. So rather than trying to figure all that stuff out on your own, manually filing in these states, use a system like TaxJar, or at least reach out to a sales tax expert that can guide you through that process. So hopefully that was helpful, and that's just over the years, things we've heard and seen, and things that maybe you can avoid as you start building your business. Thanks.